Up live in New York with major breaking news, as we've touched on early this morning, from the NBA involving not one but two arrests of notable people within the NBA. Shams is with us. We've been following your Twitter feed all morning long, Shams, as you've been reporting on it. For those who've not heard anything about this, just tell everyone everything they need to know. What has happened this morning?
Greeny, Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier have both been arrested this morning. Billups at around 6 a.m. in Portland, Oregon, and Rozier around 6 a.m., I'm told, in Orlando, where the Heat were playing last night. Rozier's been arrested for his involvement in alleged sports gambling, prop bets, and Billups, ABC News is reporting, is tied to an illegal poker operation tied to the mafia. And so the FBI has been investigating this situation for several months, and in Rozier's case, at least 2 years. And today is making arrests. There is a press conference that is set by the FBI. The Eastern District of New York has been leading this investigation. I'm told FBI Director Kash Patel has also been increasingly involved in recent weeks. He will be leading the press conference today as well. But this is really seismic news in the NBA for a sitting NBA head coach in Chauncey Billups to be arrested, taken into custody for alleged illegal gambling, as well as Terry Rozier for sports betting, allegedly. 2 arrests made this morning. There are expected to be numerous arrests also tied to both of these situations.
So the NBA wakes up this morning in the midst of, I suppose you would have to say, a sports league's worst nightmare. Is there any indication that the league had any idea this was coming? Did they know any of this might happen this morning?
As of last night, I was told the NBA did not have knowledge of these specific arrests. This has been led by the FBI. The FBI made their arrests early this morning. But the NBA has been investigating Terry Rozier, Malik Beasley. Terry Rozier was cleared by the NBA investigators over the last couple years. That's why he's been playing in games. Malik Beasley, a free agent, has not been cleared by the NBA's investigation. That's been ongoing. As of about 15-20 minutes ago, I was told Malik Beasley was not taken into custody today as part of these gambling investigations and arrests today.
Okay, so again, we've had 2 arrests so far, and the possibility there will be more. It's outstanding work, Shams. As always, we'll let you get back to the phones here, and if there's any further information, please join us as we'll bring it out to the table here, and we will state some of the obvious things right off the bat. We live in an entirely different atmosphere when it comes to sports gambling than certainly those of us, Shefty and I, and some of the older people at the table grew up in this business being around. Sports gambling was always something that was completely verboten. It was something that was sort of in the shadows. It was something that leagues stayed far away from. It was something that networks like ESPN would stay far away from. Those days are obviously long behind us. You hear a lot about legal sports gambling on this show. The Bussin' Boys, obviously sports gambling is a huge part of what you do, so we put those all out there as a preamble because it might be in the back of people's minds, and we acknowledge that this is a different time and place. However, there is a fine line, not so fine, there is a bold line that obviously has to be drawn between legal sports gambling when it comes to the public and anything that might infiltrate into locker rooms and into teams. And we all knew it was going to be a complication as this became more and more prevalent within the world of sports. So, Dan, I'll start with you. You played in the NFL, 12 years in the NFL. These are obviously conversations. For all of that time, sports gambling in this country would have been illegal. And in those days, as I have been told many times, people would come in, representatives from the league, make very clear just how far away from these sorts of things and how serious the consequences are for anyone who was caught and entangled in any of this stuff. What are your thoughts as you hear these stories?
Yeah, I think, number one, what you do in the darkness will always come to the light. And these players and Chauncey, at least allegedly, have been doing things, that they certainly thought would remain secretive. I think the second thing is, it's hard, like back then when we were playing in the league, it was relatively easy or significantly easy for us to stay away from it because it wasn't as easily accessible. So yes, we always had people coming in and explaining to us what you could and could not do. And it was mainly don't do anything. And it was almost like you didn't think about it twice because it was such an impossible thing to even entertain doing. Now I think because it's so easily accessible and there's so many different ways to do it, it's a much easier slippery slope to get yourself into. You can dip your toe in the water, and all of a sudden it's a snowball and it goes downhill real quick. And so I think that's one of the challenges to people in the limelight, people in the sports world, people in roles of leadership, it's so much easier to make a mistake nowadays than it was years ago because it's so easily at our fingertips.
We've discussed the NFL an awful lot this morning on the show regularly, and we've seen this sort of activity creep into the NFL world where back in 2022, wide receiver Calvin Ridley was suspended for a full year for the accusation that he had gambled. We've seen other players like Jamison Williams get 6 games, Quintez Cephas, C.J. Moore, other players also be suspended. There was a rash of suspensions from the NFL in that time period, raising everybody's awareness. But today feels a little different, and we don't know very much about the particulars of this case. But when you see a head coach of a professional sports team get arrested, you stop and ask yourself, we have not seen anything like that through the history of sports very rarely. Like, that is something that makes you stop and say, wow, because it is so rare and so unique. But this is the type of story, this is the type of situation that we're starting to see more and more of. It's the world that we live in. We're on a network. We're seeing overs and unders and betting lines all the time. It's all around us everywhere. And obviously, it's infiltrating into the sport as well.
For those who may be wondering, some things may seem obvious to all of us and may not be obvious to everyone who is watching. So let me just give you a quick explanation. I did the first interview with the central figure in the Arizona State point shaving scandal about 15 years ago. And the way these things can happen, I'm not in any way suggesting this is what happened in these cases, but with these prop bets, they are incredibly simple. A player can get involved with a bookie. This is what happened in the case of the Arizona State. He's betting on other things, betting on football games or whatever the case may be. All of a sudden, he owes him a little bit of money. All of a sudden, a conversation takes place. I wish I could get rid of some of this debt that I have to you. The next thing you know, simple as that. A player feigns an ankle injury. He hits all of his unders, and that's the end of the conversation. That's how easily something like this can happen. That was happening long before this activity was legal in this country. So it has always been a part of the culture, but to the point that these guys have made here, it's so much more prevalent now that it's easy to see how it becomes easier. Just thoughts, again, from 3 former NFL players.
I will say, contrary to what Dan said, I've been places around things where it was actually easily accessible. But you are taught in football, at least when we played, that, I mean, this is worse than drugs. If you're an athlete in a place and it's like you can't be at places where they gamble. People may approach you about these things, and here's what you need to say, because these are the things that will come of it, the implications, the consequences to it. And so, I mean, you were just taught, again, in our day, that it was something you stayed so far away from. But in today's world where it does get muddy, are people disciplined enough for that? Because it does, in one hand, show, hey, there's a lot of people that do this around sports, and it's a big part of sports culture now, and it drives the sport, so to speak. Like, where is that line, and how pronounced is it for players in that situation?
Yeah, I think the thought process, like before, at least when I was growing up, it was gambling was for people that were in the corner, shady in the shadows. You had to get a bookie, that type of thing, kind of like movie stuff to be growing up in Arizona. And then I get into the league, it's illegal, it becomes legal, and you have these meetings with the NFLPA. They come in, they say you cannot bet on NFL games. At the time when it first started, it was like, you can't bet on anything. You can't even have the app on your phone.
You can't endorse
That can't
companies that have connection to gambling.
Right, but my understanding of it was, if you make it legal in certain states and have regulations wrapped around it, you preach responsible gaming, then you can be safer for everybody to enjoy, add a little something extra to their game, which is totally fair. But when it comes to, if you were playing a professional sport and you can change the outcome of what people are betting on, there should be, it's a very strong line. You should not even have it on your phone. We had a situation with the Titans where there was a guy who was placing bets, but he was placing bets on college games, which is fair. But the issue with the way the NFL works is, if you're on the property of the Tennessee Titans facility and you place a bet, that is technically illegal. So he wasn't betting on anything NFL-wise, but because of that, he missed 4 games.
Quick word. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, dude, it is such a slippery slope. Like, the fact that it's tied to the mafia, you gotta assume, like, we're sitting here assuming that it started small, and now you're getting to, like, this is like Hollywood stuff. I know for me, like, as it was transitioning from illegal to legal, like, I had a situation, I joke about year 10 all the time, but when I went down to Atlanta to sign, I had a gambling show already in place that I had to sign all these things to kind of separate it, but then it was such a long process to even get there to where I could be eligible to play that it's just like, yo, they hammered down on all of this stuff. I think it is nuts what is happening with this NBA situation.
At the end of the day, if these sports leagues, professional sports, and even collegiate sports, they don't have the credibility of their product, then they don't have anything. And so that's why they have to be as careful about this as they have to be and as they are. And again, the news this morning, we have seen 2 figures from the NBA arrested in separate instances in gambling probes. The reporting continues. We'll hear more from Shams and others as we roll on this morning. In the meantime, we'll take a short